Matthew tried contacting the mother over the phone to find out what was going on over there, but to Matthew's surprise he had been blocked by the mother for cell phone calls now. GL report had also stated that the child's mother had been in contact with Matthew's mother and father the entire time Matthew was preparing for his hearing. Matthew's own mother and father were getting visits from Alicia's mother, bringing over Alicia and the oldest daughter as well, most likely orchestrated by Matthew's mother and his ex-girlfriend. They had gone behind his back knowing Matthew was most likely preparing for his case. Matthew was also confused of the odd alliance between the two women, for Alicia's mother stated she wanted to kill Matthew's mother and explained in detail to him how she would carefully do it. The hearing finally arrives and Matthew is ready to speak up on his behalf, hoping to get a chance to address Mary Rotz's lack of concern for Matt's evidence. But to Matt's surprise, Mary Rotz is not attending the hearing. David Benfiglio calls Mary on speakerphone 3 times with constant ringing and no answer. Worried Matthew doesn't know how this will go now. Benfiglio does not even address Mary's notes. The judge only ordered Matt to Elkhart's CAPS visitations and advises the parents to seek the proper counselling through their program. Matthew is greeted by a very large woman who seemed nice at first. She told Matthew her name was Crystal. Matthew was taken back to a room where he sat on a chair to wait. After a moment, Alicia's mother came back, with Alicia crying a little as well with Crystal. Matthew stayed calm as he hadn't seen his abuser in several months. Matthew immediately asked why the mother was allowed back her. Matthew stressed that the judge said in his judgment that there were no other parties to be present but me and the facilitator. The mother continues smirking at him as she sits down with Alicia. The mother calmly says, "Look, it's your dad," then smirks again at Matthew. The mother continued to say, "Oh, you like mummy, though I know," obviously prompting Matthew to speak up and say something back. Crystal asks the mother to exit the room. The mother argues with Crystal that this is not fair and that she has her rights to be here. Crystal tells the mother to please go back to the waiting room. Alicia starts her screams from start till the last part before she went home. Matthew tries playing with Alicia, pulling out a black and white stuffed cat. This cat looked very similar to Simon Matthew's cat at home. Alicia took the cat and threw it. Once Crystal said to Alicia, "Do you want to go see Mummy?" Alicia immediately stopped crying and nodded yes. Alicia immediately stopped throwing her fit. She stopped crying, throwing things, and screaming once she was told it's time to see the mother. Matthew noticed the behavior and was worried, for he had seen this pattern before from the oldest child that lived with him before the mother ran off. After Crystal came back, Matthew explained to Crystal of the behavioral patterns and stressed to her that he was concerned that this was learned behavior when the child doesn't get her way. Crystal said that she noticed too, and that she would take note of the behavior. Matthew then was given back the stuffed cat by Crystal. Matthew then tells Crystal that the stuffed cat was a gift for his daughter, and that maybe with time she will warm up to the toy. Once the visit was over, Matthew returned to the front office to exit the CAPS building. Crystal then tells Matthew that the mother refused the toy to give it back to Matthew. Matthew said, "Oh, okay," then calmly held his tongue, for he knew that the mother was acting childish and not in any way helping the situation for Matthew to bond with his daughter. Matthew's wife, who was in the waiting room, saw that the grandmother of Alicia telling the CAPS workers that she did not want anything of Matthew's to be in her house, reminding Alicia of his presence. A grandmother then tossed the stuffed cat at the CAPS workers at the front desk before leaving. The toy was not caught quickly enough by the workers, causing the toy to fall to the ground. Matthew had a conversation with Lachelle, the director, asking if she was going to take a note about that happening. Lachelle stated that she would take note of that happening, and for me not to be frustrated that they were going to talk to the grandmother, stating that that was not okay. Matthew also reminded Lachelle that the mother had technically broke court order by coming back and lying to the staff about her being allowed to attend the private visitation session. He asked what they do about court orders being broken and lying to staff. Lachelle said that she didn't think anything bad had happened during that time, that using the phrase breaking court order was a bit harsh for me to say. After the short visit, a woman named Tricia, who worked with a program called Triple P, introduced herself to Matthew. Tricia, seeing Matthew in tears, torn by the situation, tells Matthew that she understands his sadness, as it must be hard for Matthew to see his daughter with enraged emotional behavior. Matthew tells Tricia a shortened version of the rest of the story up until now. Matthew pled with Tricia, Crystal, as well as a new member attending named Kelly that this was a behavioural problem, that he was willing to do whatever it took to get Alicia the help she needs, as there was an obvious problem that needed to be solved and investigated. Matthew was feeling hopeful as Tricia stated they can help and not to worry, that they would investigate the family and see where the misbehaviour was coming from. Matthew asked the CAPS workers about their previous conversation pertaining to Tricia from the Triple P program, concerns about investigating the mother's family to see why Alicia was acting the way she was. Matthew asks the two workers if they remember the conversation, stating that they both were there as well. Kelly and Crystal look at one another and whisper under their breaths to one another, and then looked at Matthew, stating together, "I'm sorry, Matthew, we don't know what you're talking about. We don't know. Tricia from Triple P, she must not work in this building." Matthew had heard that CAPS supervising workers in Elkhart County was notorious for pushing the visiting parties over the edge, as well as making them look bad on reports, as they also had done to Matthew in past reportings. CAPS has many complaints about false reporting, as well as numerous other issues the visiting parties have stated. You can find the proof on their Google review page on the internet. However, Matthew did contact Lachelle about this matter and asked if he could be able to talk to Tricia to clear this up. Lachelle was hesitant to give Matthew a contact number for Tricia. Lachelle stated that Tricia would contact Matthew and to wait for her phone call, not giving any number for Matthew to call. Tricia never called Matthew nor left a message. Matthew assumed that this was part of the game that CAPS plays on visiting parties, protecting one another. Matthew almost wanted to give up on seeing his daughter, as he had seen from the start Elkhart County court system is entirely corrupt. Matthew tells Lachelle that he was obviously overcharged by CAPS by well over $60 because they don't keep a proper record of money when all they keep records of was debit card transactions. Matthew unfortunately paid cash to the front desk. CAPS does not keep record of cash payments, but instead showed Matthew a typed out payment record from Lachelle, incorrectly overcharging Matthew because he simply never stayed for his full visitations as reflected on the reports. Despite of Matthew's obvious overcharge, Lachelle tells Matthew that as far as she sees it, CAPS facility is all square with Matthew and denies him the refund. Matthew, outraged from the proof of the overcharge and the denial of his own refund, tells Lachelle he's going to ask the judge for a lawyer to get my refund, as well as expose her for the proof of lying, and that Lachelle has swept all Matthew's concerns under the rug, allowing Crystal and Kelly to continue lie on Matthew's visit reports, stating he was the one to end all visits early, that even though Crystal and Kelly had coaxed Matthew to end the visit from being overwhelmed by the child. Matthew replies back saying that he is not going to return to CAPS Visitation Centre until these issues are addressed and handled properly. Lachelle tells Matthew that she will put in her report that he is opting out of visitations until the judge says otherwise. She finishes the conversation saying that David Buenfiglio nor Mary Rotz will be swayed by legal threats, hanging up the phone. After the nasty phone call with Lachelle, Matthew sends a letter to Judge Buenfiglio. He stated all the problems with the CAPS workers, Crystal and Kelly denying the conversation with Tricia, the false reporting on his visits, a mother breaking court order by walking back to Matthew's first visit, sitting in the room, making Matthew uncomfortable. He told the judge that had made him feel that CAPS was disregarding the recorded claims that the mother had physically abused him, allowing the mother to come back regardless. Matthew continues by stating that Lachelle had overcharged him $60 and denied him his refund. He also states that he wanted the visitations to be moved to a different location for his visitations, being told by Mary in an email to Matthew that she had no problem having the visits to be placed elsewhere, but it was ultimately up to the judge, being out of Mary's hands. Matthew asked Buenfiglio to allow him some time to obtain legal counsel in order to continue his custody case. The arrogant judge sends a reply letter to Matthew denying him legal counsel, and that the judge's order was for Matthew to continue the visits at Elkhart County CAPS Center.